Hello and welcome to the first of what might become a regular sort of Learn with Dan mortgage tips and tricks and info video thing, which I'm going to pop on the Facebook page. The reason I've started this tonight is, well, two reasons really. One of which is, as you may have noticed on the Facebook page earlier today, I'm currently away in Kenilworth in this beautiful Holiday Inn room, as I've got a 2-day training course over the next couple of days on estate planning, tax trust, all that sort of thing, as exciting as it sounds. But also because we're in a new tax year, which means that lots and lots and lots of people are getting ready to submit their 18-19 tax return, because we're now in the 19-20 tax year. But there are 3 or 4 things which I've been asked quite regularly about, and I just wanted to cover those topics briefly. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can do with you, just to save you making perhaps a mistake, which some people have done in the past, and give you a bit of guidance. So what I was going to talk about is people have often asked me how much income they should declare on their tax return, because they want to either protect benefits or they don't want to be paying too much tax. Now the answer to that is always you've just got to be honest. You really have to be honest on your tax return. So if you're not, we're obliged in the financial services industry to report that, which sounds like a real spoil-sporty thing to say, but we really are. There's an easy online form we've got to complete if we've got any suspicions at all that you aren't declaring all of your income on your tax return. The reason I'm glancing down there all the time is that I've got my iPad with little notes on because I've got a terrible memory to what we're going to talk about. So yeah, when it comes to underdeclaring, why would we be reporting it? And I'm just a one advisor firm, so you'd think really we'd just be a mate, we'd have a chat. And I really want to have a chat with people and talk you through these things. So if you want to have a talk about how much income you'd need to borrow a certain amount of money, if you've got your own £300,000 house, we can talk through how much you'd need to be earning, and then we can set that as a goal for you to work towards. Or if you're already there, that's brilliant, we can get you the house. What we can't do though is talk to you about what you should put in your tax return to get that, because what you've got to put in your tax return is the truth. If we've got any suspicions at all about whether or not you're telling the truth on your tax return, we've got to tell HMRC. Sometimes there's whistleblowing, but we've got to do that. Now you might think it sucks, and it does, but if you think about it, Lloyds Bank, Barclays Bank, HSBC, all the big corporate banks and high street banks and so on, they're under the same obligation as we are. So if Lloyds across the road are reporting 10,000 people a year, and they're doing perhaps twice as many applications as I am, or maybe 3 times more because they're a bank, and I'm reporting none, that's going to look really suspicious, isn't it? So the regulator would think, well, how come nobody's lying to Dan, but lots of people are lying to Lloyds? They wouldn't think that was the case at all. They'd just think I wasn't telling people, I was covering for people. Same goes for 2 advisors in the same village. If there's lots and lots of advisors locally, all of whom seem to have really good reputations as well. But if I didn't report anybody and company B up the road reported 10 or 15 people a year, the regulator's going to think, well, Dan must be covering for people. So when people do come in, if you're going to talk to me about we're going to lie on our tax return, just don't. In fact, don't come in at all in the first place, or just be honest on your tax return, then come in, we can have a chat, or come in beforehand, and then we can talk through exactly what will happen if you're honest, which is what you're going to do, and then we can sort of take things from there. And that's the first thing I was going to talk about. It does link a little bit into rental income as well, because that's quite a common misconception, is that nobody really reports it, or that nobody's looking into whether or not you're reporting your rental income. And again, years ago, possibly that was the case, but it's not so much nowadays, because when you apply for a buy-to-let mortgage nowadays, whether that be to purchase property or, well, not so much to purchase property, but certainly if you already have a property and you're looking to purchase another, or if you're looking to remortgage one, then lenders will now ask us to send in your tax calculation. Quite often your last 2 or 3 tax calculations used to be known as SA 302s, and that shows a breakdown of where your income's from. So it might be income you've had from your job, income you've had from a company that you run, and they'd also anticipate seeing rental income or income from properties. If that's nothing for a year, or maybe even 2 years, lenders probably won't be too concerned about that, because especially if you're new to letting, you might have had to renovate the house, you might have had a lot of other expenditure. If you've had that property for a few years, which they can check, and they do check with against the land registry, they'll think, well, if that's been let for 5 years, how come you haven't declared any income from it yet? And that would point them to believe that you're committing tax evasion, which means they'll report you. So, and then you don't want a HMRC investigation. Now, it's not, again, it's not something which used to be looked in as much, but it really is now. Especially in Wales, we've got the Rent Smart, which means that then HMRC know who's letting properties and would anticipate seeing some income declared from that. Letting agents across Wales now have an obligation to report to HMRC, or certainly report each year, who has rental properties with them, and then HMRC is really easy to compare that list with the list with people who are telling them they've got the property. If it doesn't match, there's a good chance it's going to spark an investigation. The other thing then is about overstating your income. Now, again, it used to be, donkey's years ago, reasonably common practice, possibly part of what built up towards the whole credit crunch around 2007, 2008, that people would just overstate their income on an application form to get a mortgage. Now, that's bad because it means it's probably unaffordable, because if you're not earning as much money as you need to support that mortgage, you're going to get into financial difficulty anyway. Or you're committing tax evasion and you do have the money, but you're not telling HMRC. So again, we're back in that sort of situation where it's all going to make sense to everybody. So there's a system now which mortgage lenders use, which links in with HMRC. So if you tell them that you're earning 100,000, but HMRC think you're only earning 20,000, that's going to not match up at all. And so the lender is going to probably say, we're not giving you the mortgage, and they won't give you a reason why, because they're not allowed to tip you off. And again, that's common sense, isn't it? But HMRC will also know you've just said to a bank you're earning 100 grand, yet they think you're earning 20. So I think, well, which of these is true? Because if you're earning 80,000 more than you're telling us, you owe us a lot of tax. So they'll want to try and reclaim that tax, and they'll probably put you on a list to be investigated. The bank, on the other hand, as well, will be thinking, well, apparently you're only earning 20,000. You've told us you earn 100. So they'll stick you on a system which spots fraudulent applications, share that information with other lenders, and then you won't get a mortgage with any other lender for any amount, because they'll think, well, this person's tried to commit fraud, we don't want to lend to them. So it's a little bit scary what there is nowadays, and the system that they use is really, really advanced. In fact, Santander recently, and a number of other banks, have got to the point where if you're honest about your income, and we declare you earn 20,000 a year, and you do, they can check that. They won't even ask us for a copy of your payslip in some circumstances. They'll just issue you a mortgage offer straight away, which shows how quick and how easy it is for them to sort of exchange this information. So if we're all being honest, it's brilliant. If people are trying to pull the wool over a lender's eyes or over the revenue's eyes, not so brilliant, but I guess in the long run it perhaps is for all of us. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to have a chat about tonight. So I hope it's been of use, and I know this is a little bit of, oh God, sort of information video, but it's information which I think people should know, and obviously we do in financial services, so why not share it a bit? The next one I'll try and make a bit more upbeat, but I thought this was relevant because we are at the start of a new tax year. People will be thinking about doing the tax returns, and it's important that you don't fall foul of things accidentally, thinking it doesn't really matter, when it really does, and there are ways that people are going to get caught out. Anyway, hopefully that hasn't terrified you or anything. Don't stop asking questions. Do ask questions in your bank. Do ask questions of mortgage advisors to come in and talk about what you need to do to get your income up to a level where you could buy that property you want. It's free. Don't charge anything at all for that. You can book in, come in, we'll have an hour or so sitting together talking through everything. We can talk through how your income's derived, how lenders will view different types of income, and it doesn't cost you a penny at all. And have a cup of tea and a biscuit and talk it all through. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, hope it's been useful, and I'll speak to you soon.